the quiet of this moment, before we move forward, let us create a space for the sacred. For what we invite into these first few minutes will surely shape the landscape of all that follows. Imagine preparing a room for a cherished guest. The lights are softly lit. Music plays gently in the background. The door is open and welcome. This is not mere procedure. It is a message, an unspoken declaration that says, "You are wanted here. You belong." In the same way, an opening invocation is far more than tradition. It is a spiritual welcome, spoken with intention, preparing the heart to receive the guidance and peace that only God can offer. So let us begin with this simple, heartfelt invitation. In the stillness of your own heart, or whispered aloud, let the words be your own. God, I welcome you into this time. Your presence is the foundation I seek. I ask you now to settle the currents of my mind, to steady the rhythm of my heart. Let your peace flow into my body, my thoughts, and the path that lies before me. As these words find their shape, notice what is stirring within you. Perhaps the mind is a whirlwind of thoughts and obligations. Perhaps a familiar tension has settled in your shoulders, or a tightness constricts your chest. This is the normal state of a life fully lived. We arrive carrying the weight of busy schedules, unresolved conflicts, and unanswered questions. God does not ask you to pretend this weight isn't there. Instead, the invitation begins with raw honesty. God, this is where I am. I ask you to meet me, right here. True peace is not the absence of trouble. It is not a sign that everything is perfect. In the Scriptures, the peace of God is described as something far deeper, something more resilient. It is a guard that stands watch over the heart and mind. In his letter to the Philippians, the Apostle Paul draws a direct line between prayer, trust, and this profound peace to there. Instead, the invitation begins with raw honesty. God, this is where I am. I ask you to meet me right here. True peace is not the absence of trouble. It is not a sign that everything is perfect. In the Scriptures, the peace of God is described as something far deeper, something more resilient. It is a guard that stands watch over the heart and mind. In his letter to the Philippians, the Apostle Paul draws a direct line between prayer, trust, and this profound peace. We bring our anxieties to God, and in return, He offers a peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that serves as a sentinel, protecting us from inner collapse. This means peace is not merely an emotion we wait to feel. It is a form of spiritual protection we can actively request. Now let us make this invocation more personal, more grounded in your reality. Add a single honest detail about your current state. For instance, God, the feeling of being overwhelmed is heavy today. I ask for your calm to quiet my mind. God, I am anxious about what is to come. In this moment, I choose to place my trust in you. God, I confess I feel distant from you right now. I ask that you would draw near to me. If a whisper of doubt asks whether God can handle the raw details of your life, the resounding answer is yes. Consider how the Scriptures are filled with people who brought the full, unedited weight of their lives into His presence. David never spoke in vague generalities in the Psalms. Job did not hide his profound confusion. Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane prayed through real human emotion, grief, fear, and a desperate need for strength, all while submitting his heart to the Father's will. Your prayer can be, and should be, just as real. And as you pray, allow your body to join in this search for peace. Slow your breathing for just a moment. Inhale gently for a count of 4. Hold that breath for 2, and then exhale slowly for a count of 6. As you release your breath, imagine you are setting down a heavy burden you had forgotten you were carrying. This is not a magical formula, nor does it replace prayer, but it is a physical act that helps the body align with the peace the spirit is seeking. Let us now ground this invocation in reverence. The peace that comes from God is not just a fleeting sense of calm. It is the tangible presence of the Holy One, real, personal, and intentional. As the psalmist wrote, "Be still and know that I am God." In that stillness, we find our true beginning. This peace is the very ground upon which we can stand to ask for healing, a healing that addresses the whole person, because we are not one-dimensional beings. When we feel unwell, stressed, or spiritually depleted, the effects ripple through our entire existence. Body, mind, and spirit are all intertwined. A true prayer for healing, then, is an invitation for wholeness, not just a request for a quick fix. Let us begin with the physical body. So many of us live with pain, chronic fatigue, illness, or the slow recovery from injury. While prayer is a partner to medical care, not a replacement for it, it is a vital source of comfort, courage, and unwavering hope. A prayer for the body might sound like this: God, I bring my body before you. Where there is pain, be my strength. Where there is weakness, be my restoration. Where I am uncertain of the next step, lead me to the help I need. Grant wisdom to my doctors, skill to the hands that care for me, and a quiet spirit for my recovery. It is a prayer of specificity without presumption. Instead of demanding an instant miracle, we can pray, "Bring your healing, your relief, and your restoration, according to your perfect will and in your perfect timing." From the physical, we turn to the emotional. Emotional healing addresses the wounds that are not visible to the eye, but are deeply felt within. The persistent anxiety, the lingering grief, the sharp edges of anger or shame, the echoes of past trauma. Emotional healing is real healing, for it impacts our sleep, our focus, our very ability to navigate the stresses of daily life. Here, our prayer can be one of grounding and honesty. We might say, "God, I ask you to soothe my heart. Calm my mind when my thoughts begin to race. Help me release the burdens I have been holding on to far too tightly. Heal the places where I am wounded, not only by what has happened, but by how it has shaped me." If you are carrying the weight of guilt, you can add, "Help me to stop believing the lies that diminish my worth. Teach me how to fully receive your unconditional love and mercy." This kind of prayer aligns with a timeless spiritual principle. Peace grows in the soil of surrender, as we name our burdens and release our grip on control. Emotional healing is intimately connected to spiritual healing. To be spiritually unwell can feel like being adrift, a sense of distance from God, a struggle to pray, a loss of trust, a feeling of profound numbness. Some call it a spiritual desert, a dark night of the soul, and it can be a frightening place to be. But spiritual healing often arrives not in a dramatic flood, but as a gentle stream. It can be a quiet return of hope, a newfound ability to forgive, a renewed desire for truth, or simply the strength to persevere for one more day. In prayer, we can voice this deep need. God, restore my spirit, renew my faith where it has grown thin. Help me to feel your closeness again, even if my own feelings are numb. Lift this spiritual heaviness. Grant me your perspective when I am lost in my own, and your strength when I am tempted to give up. To make this prayer a tangible practice, consider a simple rhythm of 3 parts. Bring your need, ask for God's help, and open your heart to receive His peace. You can read this aloud or adapt it as your own. God, I come to you just as I am. I bring you my physical pain and my weariness. I ask you to touch my body with healing, relief, and renewed strength. Guide my doctors and caregivers, and give me the discipline to follow the path toward recovery. I bring you my emotional wounds and my restless thoughts. I ask you to soothe my heart and quiet my mind. Heal the broken places within me and teach me to live in your grace. I bring you my weary spirit. I ask you to renew my faith and draw me close to you once more. Remove the distance I feel and fill me with your presence. And now, I open my hands and my heart to receive the peace that you offer. A peace that guards me, sustains me, and leads me home. Life rarely offers us the comfort of certainty. Instead, it presents us with questions, with crossroads, with waiting rooms, some literal, others emotional. Our task is not simply to endure this uncertainty, but to find and name hope in the very midst of it. And naming hope does not mean pretending that everything is fine. It means choosing words, focusing our attention, and taking the next small step in a way that keeps a better future in view, especially when the present feels shrouded in fog. Consider the power of naming something. When you name a fear, you bring it out of the shapeless shadows and into the light, where it can be addressed. Instead of a vague feeling that something is wrong, you can say, I am worried about my finances right now. This small shift is significant. It transforms a formless dread into a specific challenge. And once the challenge is named, hope can be attached to it. I am worried, but I can also take one responsible step today. I can review my budget. I can ask for help. I can seek one new opportunity. Hope begins to flourish when we stop treating uncertainty as an enemy to be defeated. Uncertainty is not the same as hopelessness. Uncertainty simply means the final outcome is not yet known. Hope is what we choose to do in that unresolved space. Hope declares, because the outcome isn't guaranteed, I will focus on what I can control. I will rely on my faith, and I will take small, measurable steps forward. One practical way to cultivate this hope is to speak in the language of already and not yet. The word already anchors you in the evidence of the past, the skills you have already built, the support you have already found, the difficult seasons you have already navigated. The not yet acknowledges what you are still waiting for, without surrendering to despair. A person might say, I have already handled difficult times before. This one is still unfolding. I do not have all the answers today, but I am not yet out of options. This is not wishful thinking. It is a realistic narration of your story, honest about the present, but confident about your capacity to move forward. Let's ground this in an example. Imagine waiting for the results of a medical test. The uncertainty can be all-consuming. Sleep is fragmented. Thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios. Naming hope in this situation might sound like this. I do not know the outcome yet. I cannot control the results of the test, but I can control my actions right now. I can follow my doctor's instructions. I can lean on the people who support me. I can choose to breathe and pray instead of panicking. Notice the pattern. Hope does not deny fear. It redirects the energy of fear into careful preparation and self-care. Or consider a team at work facing the uncertainty of layoffs. The ground can feel like it's shifting beneath their feet. Naming hope could sound like this. I don't know what my role will be in the future, but I can prepare for it. I can update my resume. I can document my accomplishments. I can strengthen my professional relationships and continue to show up with integrity. In this context, hope sounds like competence and courage. It is future-oriented, not because the future is guaranteed, but because it is being actively built, one wise decision at a time. When a relationship is wounded, whether by harsh words, neglect, betrayal, or a pattern of conflict, the heaviest question becomes, how do we move forward without letting the pain define our future? This is the sacred ground of release, forgiveness, and restoration. These three are related, but they are not the same, and understanding the distinction can change everything. First, let us speak of release. To release something is to consciously decide to stop gripping an offense. It is not pretending the hurt didn't happen or minimizing its impact. Release is an internal act. It is choosing to stop the mental replay of the event, that endless loop where we rehearse what we wish we had said or done. A practical step toward release is to simply name what you are carrying. I am carrying disappointment. I am carrying sadness. I am carrying a fear of being hurt again. Then you can choose what to do with that weight, rather than letting it automatically steer your every reaction. Next comes forgiveness. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as letting someone off the hook, but in a healthier, more profound sense, forgiveness is the decision to release the desire for retaliation. It is choosing to stop treating the one who hurt you as an enemy you are responsible for punishing. Forgiveness can, and often must, coexist with accountability. You can forgive someone while still saying, that behavior was not acceptable and it cannot happen again. Think of it this way. Forgiveness is about the posture of your own heart. Accountability is about the consequences of another's behavior. For example, imagine a friend who repeatedly breaks their promises. The behavior has eroded your trust. Forgiveness would mean you choose to stop plotting how to get even or holding the grudge over their head. At the same time, accountability might sound like this. I value our friendship, but I can no longer rely on your word in this area. If we make plans, I will need you to confirm the day before, or I will have to adjust my own expectations. This is forgiveness without enabling. It is both loving and wise. Now we must address a crucial truth. Forgiveness does not always mean immediate restoration. Restoration is the active rebuilding of a relationship, reestablishing trust, open communication, and closeness. And restoration is entirely dependent on safety and demonstrated consistent change, happen or minimizing its impact. Release is an internal act. It is choosing to stop the mental replay of the event, that endless loop where we rehearse what we wish we had said or done. A practical step toward release is to simply name what you are carrying. I am carrying disappointment. I am carrying sadness. I am carrying a fear of being hurt again. Then, you can choose what to do with that weight, rather than letting it automatically steer your every reaction. Next comes forgiveness. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as letting someone off the hook. But in a healthier, more profound sense, forgiveness is the decision to release the desire for retaliation. It is choosing to stop treating the one who hurt you as an enemy you are responsible for punishing. Forgiveness can, and often must, coexist with accountability. You can forgive someone while still saying, that behavior was not acceptable, and it cannot happen again. Think of it this way. Forgiveness is about the posture of your own heart. Accountability is about the consequences of another's behavior. For example, imagine a friend who repeatedly breaks their promises. The behavior has eroded your trust. Forgiveness would mean you choose to stop plotting how to get even or holding the grudge over their head. At the same time, accountability might sound like this. I value our friendship, but I can no longer rely on your word in this area. If we make plans, I will need you to confirm the day before, or I will have to adjust my own expectations. This is forgiveness without enabling. It is both loving and wise. Now we must address a crucial truth. Forgiveness does not always mean immediate restoration. Restoration is the active rebuilding of a relationship, re-establishing trust, open communication, and closeness. And restoration is entirely dependent on safety and demonstrated, consistent change. If someone has harmed you through manipulation, abuse, or chronic dishonesty, restoration may not be possible until the foundational issues of their behavior are addressed. In other words, you can grant forgiveness from your own heart even when reconciliation is not yet safe or wise. Reconciliation is a process, a two-way street that requires time, transparency, and true repentance from the person who caused the harm. So what does healthy restoration look like step by step? It begins with an honest accounting of the impact. Both people need clarity on what happened and the pain it caused. Then comes responsibility. The person who inflicted the wound must be able to say, in plain language, "I did this, and I understand how it harmed you." This act of owning the behavior without excuses or blame shifting is the bedrock of any potential rebuilding. From there, the path forward is paved with new, trustworthy actions, repeated over time, until safety and confidence can slowly begin to take root once more. Let us now turn to the nature of strength, not the kind displayed in a single heroic moment, but the quiet, resilient strength required for the journey of everyday life. True perseverance is not fueled by a constant feeling of motivation. It is powered by renewal, the small, repeatable actions that rebuild our energy, restore our focus, and reinforce our belief that progress is still possible, even when conditions are far from ideal. First, we must understand that our bodies and minds are designed for cycles. We are not meant to operate at maximum intensity indefinitely. Sleep restores our cognitive function. Food replenishes our energy. Movement regulates our mood. When we try to simply power through without these cycles of renewal, we often misinterpret exhaustion as a personal failure. But exhaustion is not a verdict. It is information. It is our body's signal that it requires recovery, not judgment. What then does this daily renewal look like? Think of it as resetting a device. You don't need a new one. You just need a recharge. You can start by establishing a minimum viable morning, 1 or 2 simple actions you can accomplish even on your most difficult days. Perhaps it is drinking a glass of water before anything else, or stepping outside for 5 minutes of daylight. These are not heroic feats. They are signal boosters. They send a message to your nervous system. We are safe. We are grounded. We can begin again. Next, we build strength through consistency, not intensity. It is tempting to believe that the most effective approach is always the most demanding one. But research on habit formation points to the profound power of small, regular behaviors. A routine lowers decision fatigue. Instead of negotiating with yourself every single day, you simply follow a pre-established cue. This is why the simple discipline of showing up daily is so powerful. It is less about feeling ready and more about letting your environment and your schedule do some of the heavy lifting for you. Consider a runner training for a 10-kilometer race. On their best days, they feel unstoppable. On their hardest days, they might be tempted to skip their training entirely, creating a pattern of all or nothing. But the runner who truly perseveres follows a different rule. On the tough days, they do something smaller. A 15-minute jog, a brisk walk, a series of stretches. Over time, that consistent, moderated effort maintains their fitness and, more importantly, prevents the demoralizing feeling of having to start over from zero. Finally, we must cultivate our mental strength, for perseverance is as much an inner game as an outer one. Your thoughts can either be a drain on your energy or a source of traction. One of the most reliable tools for this is the practice of reframing your inner narrative. Instead of thinking, "I can't do this," try, "I am learning how to do this." Instead of, "This is too hard," try, "This is challenging, and it is through challenge that I grow." These are not empty platitudes. They are cognitive shifts that change how your brain interprets obstacles. When you label effort as part of the learning process, you are far more likely to stick with it. Another powerful practice is to focus on a process goal rather than only a performance goal. A performance goal is the final outcome, finishing the race, getting the promotion. A process goal is the daily action you control, putting on your running shoes, making the sales call. By focusing on the process, you give yourself a win every single day, building the momentum and the mental fortitude needed to eventually reach the destination. As our time of reflection draws to a close, let us pause to receive a final blessing, one that is rooted in gratitude and fortified by a quiet confidence in God's ongoing work in our lives. Think for a moment how it feels when someone remembers you, speaks hope over you, and holds you in prayer. That is the very posture we will now assume, one of grateful hearts and steady trust. First, let us turn to gratitude. Gratitude is more than a polite thank you. It is the spiritual practice of noticing what God has already done, even in the smallest of ways. The Scriptures repeatedly connect thanksgiving with inner strength. The Apostle Paul advised, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts." Notice the sequence. Prayer and thanksgiving come first, and they lead to a peace that guards us. That protection is vital, for it keeps fear and despair from overwhelming the mind. So take a brief inventory. Perhaps you have been challenged by a difficult truth that has led to growth. Perhaps you have seen progress in an area where you once felt stuck. Perhaps you have realized that in a season of waiting, God was not absent. He was cultivating your patience. If any of this resonates, pause and give Him the credit. Do not rush past this moment. Gratitude turns our experiences into worship, and worship builds resilience in the soul. Second, let us anchor ourselves in the confidence of God's ongoing work. We sometimes mistakenly believe that God's power was most active at the moment we first came to faith, as if the story is finished. But Scripture teaches the very opposite. God's work in a believer's life is a continuous, unfolding process. As Paul wrote, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion." Carry it on. That is an active, present tense promise. God does not only initiate, He sustains. Imagine a master gardener. A seed does not grow because the gardener plants it and then walks away. The gardener returns day after day to water, to protect, to prune, and to cultivate until the plant reaches its full maturity. In the same way, God continues to tend to the garden of your life, through His Word, through His Spirit, through community, and even through the difficult lessons you never would have asked for, but desperately needed. Finally, let this confidence be grounded in the promise of His presence and guidance. Right here, right now. Jesus promised His followers, "Surely I am with you always." That "always" is not a decorative phrase. It is a covenant. It means that your life is not lived in isolation, and your next step is not taken in a spiritual vacuum. When you feel unsure about a decision, a relationship, your health, your future, remember that God is present and actively at work. And because His work is ongoing, we do not have to wait until we are perfect before we can trust Him. Trust is an action. It is choosing prayer when you would rather panic. It is choosing honesty when you would rather hide. It is choosing obedience in one small area, even when the bigger picture remains unclear. Think of how often faith in the Bible is not a feeling, but a response. Abraham trusted God enough to move. The disciples trusted God enough to keep going. Our confidence grows not by waiting for certainty, but by taking the next faithful step in His presence.